Wow, that was a big to do there. I hope I can live up to that now. Thank you. Thank you very much, June, for inviting me out here. I got the call, and I had to think about this, open your eyes, what that all meant to myself. And being from Silicon Valley, I had to come up with the buzzwords first to start with. You know, what is it? I have to reshape myself, reinvent myself. The one my daughter loves the most is upsetting the apple cart. So when you go home, Google it and figure out what that means. So in typical fashion, we try to figure out what all these words mean. Really, when it got all done, I came to the same conclusion. It's the challenge. I still have this challenge. How do I reinvent myself? How do I go forward? How do I make things happen? So I thought back to my childhood. Like, how did I get here? What made me want to change what I do and what I'm doing all the time? And my mother. No, that's not me. That's my mother, actually. She was 12 years old in this photo, and that's the beautiful car that we actually drove around in when we were kids. My mother was an artist, and every weekend we would drive to my grandma's, the three siblings and myself. And because my mother was an artist, she never took the same road. She never took the highway, so we always took the back roads. And that was fun, sitting in the back of the car, watching the trees go by. Oh, this is fantastic. Except for one of these trips. The car ran out of gas. And as a kid, this was the biggest disaster because I remembered the town was a long ways away. So here, my three siblings and I are really sighing in disbelief that we're going to have to get out of the car and walk all the way back there. But my mother, she says, jump out of the car, get ready. We all jumped out of the car, and she said, stop, look around. You may never be here again. Look at the sky, look at the cornfields, look at the trees. Look what is around you. It's not going by at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's right here in front of you. And that really was something to be said. She transformed that moment into something which I thought as a child was a disaster into something really unique. It stuck with me for a long time. And as I grew older, I started many companies, not many, maybe 10. Some of them went okay, some of them were a pretty big disaster. I mean, really disaster, okay? But my wife stuck with me, so we're okay. But what she taught me was to rethink about that moment. Why did this disaster happen may or may not be important, but the disaster happened. Take this moment to look around, see what you have, take stock in who you are, take stock in what you've done. Fortunately, I was in Silicon Valley and in the IT business, and that's a badge of courage, a badge of recognition if you actually fail. So luckily, I was able to pick myself up more often than not and actually start it over again. Just before I came here, I was racing around. Just like the car, I'm going 1,000,000 miles an hour trying to finish all the brewing I had to do before I could come here. Had to do 2 different batches, had to fix a tank, had to do all my analytics, had to make sure everything was right before I could get on that plane. So just give me a moment to take a deep breath because I'm in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. This is absolutely gorgeous. This is a dream come true to come back to Japan where there's more sake than there is sand on a beach. This is fantastic. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I mean, this is just a beautiful place, and I feel so fortunate to be here. So, I'm Jake Myrick. I have 2 other founders. We started the first Artisan sake brewery in San Francisco. It was a bit of a challenge. So I lived in Japan for 10 years, and I traveled most of Japan. I visited perhaps around 200 different kuras while I was living here. So when I came back to America, they pasteurized all sake coming into America. So you couldn't get namazake. So I started making it in my garage. Believe it or not, in America, you can actually home brew. So I actually started making sake. I was working at a nonprofit, and the nonprofit decided that they wanted to go to the East Coast, and my wonderful wife said, no, we're not moving to the East Coast. We're staying in San Francisco. So I convinced Noriko, my partner, who is a Japanese, also loves sake, but in the IT business, and I convinced my other partner, Warren, who is a self-taught carpenter. What's not on this slide is Noriko actually is my wife. And Warren Fall is actually a childhood friend I've known since I'm 12 years old. And this is the 3rd business I've convinced him to join me in. What's even more special is his wife still lets me in the house. So we started this project. It usually takes about 20 years to learn how to make sake and actually make something that comes out good. But being from the IT world, we decided to divide up the tasks. I studied all we could about actually doing the fermentation, the bottling, and all the legal. Noriko studied all she knew and all we could find out about making koji. And if you know about sake, koji and fermentation are two parallel processes, and you need to actually understand and do both well. While Noriko and I were coming back and forth to Japan learning and studying these processes, our third partner, Warren, was building out our kura, which is very important because there is no industry in Japan that supports sake making. We have wine making, we have beer making, but so many of the tools and so much of the process is totally unique to sake. So Warren had to actually develop all the tanks, had to develop all the koji rooms, had to develop all the tools and build them. So we're very, very fortunate to have this team. When a lot of people think about Silicon Valley, they immediately think about the IT or the biotech, and they think of all these Facebooks and Googles, all this fantastic VC money, and that is there, and there is lots of money. But what is unique about Silicon Valley for me is the spirit of people giving other people a chance at a new startup. So it's not just me reinventing myself, it's the readability of everyone in the community that said, oh, you're IT, you're making sake? Okay, we'll try it. So I was very fortunate for that. What also people probably don't recognize here is I've listed a couple of the industries outside the IT which were started in the Silicon San Francisco Bay Area. One of the most important ones there for me is the wine industry. In the 1970s, if anyone is old enough like me that can remember back then, people didn't drink wine at home. They went to a French restaurant or they went to an Italian restaurant and they drank wine there. It wasn't until the 1970s when this winery won an award, blind tasting, in Paris, that people recognized California had wine that we can actually drink. And at that point, wine industry changed. They started to giving it as gifts, then they started to taking it home, and it became part of everyday life. For me, this is my vision, this is my passion, is to get sake out of only Japanese restaurants. We need to do that. Sake is a fantastic drink that needs to be consumed at home. It needs to be given as gifts. We also have the bread industry, which was transformed there. We also have the beer industry, which is transformed there. We also have the coffee industry, and we now have chocolate. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Dandelion Chocolate. There's two locations in Tokyo right now. This is an amazing, amazing company here doing incredible stuff with their chocolate. I'm hoping the Sequoia can follow in these footsteps. When we started this brewery here in 2013, there was 13 micro sake breweries in Northern California. I just talked to a distributor, and he says that there are now 30 in Northern America. So that's a significant growth, not like the beer industry that added 2,000 new micro beer breweries. But the other important fact is sake grew by 14% in America. That was the biggest growth of any alcoholic beverage by far. I spend most of my time doing education, and not just with the people that I deal with, my customers, actually with California government. So California believes that sake is a wine, so I had to get a wine license. Yes, when you come to my kura, it's actually a winery. The federal government thinks we are a beer, so I had to get a beer license. Normally this takes about 3 months for each of these, but for some reason it took them 9 months to figure out what to do with me. This actually is not so bad. The problem is when it comes into actually doing the labeling and all the little pieces, all the puzzles that go together when you actually have to do business. They are a stumbling block. They are still a stumbling block. They keep telling me they're going to change, but it's a bureaucracy. Education. We have right now about 17, 18 different restaurants. And over the course of the last year, we've had over 400 of their employees come through our educational seminars. Because we make namazake, which is unpasteurized sake, which 90% of the sake coming into America is pasteurized, the average wait staff, chef, and people in the restaurant business don't know what and how to handle namazake. So we go through very basic 101 classes. We also do classes and private parties for the customers or end customers. Yes, we have a few animals in our labels. We did the market research. We asked people as they were leaving the Japanese restaurant what sake you drank. Better than 80% of them or more could not remember the style of sake, let alone the name. So we decided that we needed to change that. We needed to make sake more accessible. We need to make it easy to read, easy to remember, something that they could understand and take to the store and say, I want that kind of sake. So we put our name at the top, then we kept the style. We wanted them to learn some portion of what actual Nihonshu meant, Genshu, Nama, Nigori. So we wanted to make sure they kept that in there. And then we added the character, because in America, if all else fails, people will remember the Bambi, they'll remember the rabbit, they'll remember the rooster. Our second line we created here is we're coming along with the same operation. So we created a new coastal brand and we created characters. What we're trying to do is to create a very simple, very approachable package that the consumer can understand. I know in Japan this is probably not your typical style. This is actually our gift box. But because America, and specifically the California area, they really want to have something that has a low carbon footprint, and they want to have something that is not overly wrapped. So this is the style of packaging that came out. The next piece we did was we actually went out and found restaurants that were well known in San Francisco. Liho Liho is probably one of the best restaurants, probably the top 10 restaurants in San Francisco, and is in the top 100 in America. When we approached them, they had no sake. So we first had to explain to the beverage manager what sake was, how it worked well with their food, and then that they should take it. They took it. Now they carry 20 new sakes from Japan. The second piece was to go through retail. So we did not go to the big supermarkets. We went to the small boutique food markets. Byright is probably one of the best known markets in San Francisco. Again, they were not carrying sake. We educated the beverage managers, then we educated the staff. They are our number one retail location now. They are not carrying any other sake yet, but they're talking with me that they are soon to start carrying more sake. Sake is a very, very interesting component for them. They, again, had lots of micro beers. They had really premium wine. They had excellent meats. They had all the stuff that we wanted to be next to. Again, one of my issues, though, is they put us at one of their locations next to the beer, and in the other location, we're next to the wine. So we're still not sure where we are. Are we a beer or are we a wine in America? One of the ones I'm really happy with is because it's my second favorite thing in life is chocolate. We do a seminar with Dandelion Chocolate where we do pairing with the chocolate and our sake. We do this once a month, and all the classes are sold out for the rest of the year. This is incredibly beneficial to the chocolate industry and also to us. So everyone that's coming in gets a little bit of a seminar about how chocolate is made and a seminar about how sake is made. They have actually going to do another event with us, which is Sake Day, which is a big event. Over 1,800 people are coming to this event, and they will doing a pairing with us also. Feastly is a pop-up. I don't know if pop-ups are so popular here in Japan. It's a group of chefs that get together, and they don't have a restaurant, but they go to different venues, and they use the food or something local to produce their food. This gentleman, Jeff here, he actually takes all of our sake and either marinates the fish or does something special to make sure that the sake is incorporated actually in the meal. He is a fisherman by trade, so all the fish that he's using for the presentation and the food that day is caught that morning. What's really interesting, though, is he takes our sake kasu and makes chocolate vegan mousse. And the people can't tell that that there's no dairy in the mousse. It's so creamy and so incredible. It's just amazing. Right there's a little bit of it. I wish I had some right now. I apologize. This is my IT coming back in here. Being a small brewer, I really had to figure out how I could do this efficiently. There's only 3 of us, and last year it was only myself. So I had to do everything myself. So I had to figure out how I could watch the koji and watch the temperature of the tanks and watch the humidity. And there's lots of technology out there for the beer industry and lots of technology out there for the wine industry, but there was no technology that I could find that was affordable for a small craft individual like myself. So I actually went and approached a pharmaceutical company that produces this type of technology. So this is all cloud-based. So I sit at home on my iPad and I can make sure that my koji is progressing efficiently. What's unique about us? Local. Everything is local. We're in the city so that we have access to customers. They can come and visit. They can see the brewery. Just like Napa, we wanted to have the customers come in, see, smell, taste. We produce sake all year round. So we are there 365 days of the year doing some process of the sake making. So when people come in, they can smell the koji, they can smell the aromi, they can taste it in the air. They can actually get up close and see what's going on. That's really, really important for us. I have been working with rice farmers for the last 4 years trying to start growing my rice. I'm using Calrose rice. Calrose rice is local California rice. It actually has a distant relative to Watarebune rice, but it's still table rice. Because California's been in a drought for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, we haven't been able to do that. But that is a goal of mine. This is my partner Warren, my partner Noriko, and myself. I wish you all to come visit me. I'm here to try to help educate America about sake, so I'm hoping that you guys can help me help America learn more about this great, incredible, fantastic elixir of the gods. Thank you very much.